The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be the crowning moment of a long journey, a sophisticated evening of toasts and laughter before Julian and Sienna Sterling exchanged their vows. The venue was an opulent private hall, glowing with the amber light of 100 candles. Elena Vance, Julian's mother, felt a familiar pinch of out-of-place anxiety as she navigated the room. In her arms, she cradled a gift wrapped in handmade paper, a legacy project she had spent months perfecting. It was a thick, hand-bound archive of Julian's life, a collection of every milestone from his first scraped knee to the day he made junior partner at his firm. It was her heart in a box, intended to welcome Sienna into the history of the family they were about to expand. But before Elena could find a moment to present it, Sienna intercepted her. Dressed in a gown of liquid silk that seemed to repel the very air around it, Sienna leaned in, her movements fluid and predatory. The scent of her perfume was sharp and clinical, cutting through the warm aroma of the dinner. With a smile that remained perfectly fixed for the benefit of the cameras across the room, she whispered words that felt like a physical blow. "Let's be clear, Elena," Sienna breathed, her voice a jagged contrast to her elegant exterior. "After the ceremony tomorrow, you are a ghost to us. You've served your purpose in raising him, but your season is over. Do yourself, and my family, a favor and don't show up at the altar.
We don't need your kind of history cluttering our future."
Elena stood paralyzed, the weight of the book in her hands suddenly feeling like lead. The sounds of clinking crystal and soft violins became a dull roar in her ears. She looked toward Julian, who was across the room, trapped in a conversation with Sienna's wealthy father, and realized with a sickening clarity that the woman he loved was a stranger to the woman who had raised him. Elena didn't make a scene. She simply turned and walked out into the cold evening air, leaving the gift on a side table, knowing that by sunset the next day, the Sterling Empire would be facing a very different kind of reality. Elena Vance had never been a woman of many demands. Her life had been defined by the quiet rhythm of the working class. For 30 years she had navigated a grueling schedule, working the early shift at a local clinic and spending her evenings at a neighborhood tailoring shop, stitching together a life that ensured Julian never felt the void left by a father who had vanished before the boy could even remember his face. She was the woman who fixed her own plumbing, painted her own porch, and spent every spare cent on Julian's LSAT prep books. Julian was her masterpiece, the boy who had traded a tattered childhood blanket for a law degree, becoming the first in their bloodline to break the cycle of poverty. This was why Sienna's cruelty stung so fiercely. Elena wasn't trying to hold on to her son out of desperation. She was trying to maintain a seat at the table she had spent her life building. Sienna, an ambitious marketing executive with a pedigree of old money and high-altitude social standing, had always looked at Elena as a smudge on an otherwise perfect canvas. Elena recalled the small, sharp moments of the past year. The way Sienna had accidentally left Elena off the guest list for the engagement brunch, or how she had laughed off Elena's offer to cook the traditional family dinner, replacing it with a 5-course meal from a Michelin-starred chef. Sienna didn't just want Julian. She wanted to erase the parts of him that didn't fit her aesthetic, starting with his mother. The morning of the wedding arrived with a cruel, brilliant sunshine. Elena sat in her small kitchen, her teal silk dress still hanging on the closet door, untouched. She had spent the night in a state of mourning, not for a wedding, but for a son she feared she was losing to a lie. Her phone was a constant vibration of panicked texts from bridesmaids and eventually, a frantic voicemail from Julian.
"Mom, where are you?
"The car is waiting."
Please, I need you here."
But Elena stayed silent. She knew that Julian's world was about to collide with the truth, and she couldn't be the one to soften the blow. At the chapel, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Behind the scenes, Julian's oldest friend had pulled him aside with a heavy heart and a digital folder of evidence. The Sterling family wasn't what they claimed to be. There were photos, clear, undeniable shots of Sienna in a very different kind of merger with her firm's primary investor, Dominic Thorne. But more than the infidelity, there was the paperwork. Julian, a lawyer by trade and instinct, looked through the financial disclosures his friend had uncovered. The Sterlings were insolvent. Their prestigious estate was heavily leveraged, and the elaborate wedding was a final gamble to tie their sinking fortunes to Julian's rapidly rising star and his future earnings at the firm. Julian didn't walk down the aisle. He walked to the front of the church, looked at the crowd of socialites and strangers, and announced that the event was over. The silence that followed was deafening. By that afternoon, the story had been flipped. Sienna, ever the professional manipulator, posted a tearful video online, painting Elena as the meddling, unstable mother who had poisoned Julian's mind and forced him to abandon his bride at the altar. The internet, hungry for a villain, turned its sights on Elena. She was harassed online, snubbed at her local market, and even her employer at the clinic suggested she take a leave of absence to let the scandal die down. But Elena Vance was not a woman who could be shamed into disappearing. She reached into her files, the careful records she had kept of every communication and every legal document Julian had ever shared with her. She found the prenuptial agreement Sienna had tried to slide past Julian, filled with predatory clauses that would have funneled his life's work into her family's failing accounts. She found the records of the Sterlings' unpaid debts and the emails where Sienna discussed Julian as a financial asset. With the help of a local investigative reporter, the real story broke. It wasn't a story of a jilted bride. It was a story of a corporate-style ambush disguised as a romance. The report exposed the Sterlings' bankruptcy filings and the secret payoffs they had made to keep their reputation afloat. The tide of public opinion turned overnight. The abandoned victim was revealed as a calculated hunter, and the meddling mother was seen for what she truly was, a guardian. The Sterlings eventually fled the city, leaving behind a trail of lawsuits and a disgraced name. Elena and Julian, however, stayed. They rebuilt their lives on a foundation of honesty rather than image. A year later, Julian introduced his mother to a woman who didn't look at Elena as a social obstacle, but as a hero. As Elena sat at her Sunday dinner table, watching her son finally find a partner who valued the hands that had raised him, she realized that the hardest battles aren't fought with shouts, but with the quiet, unyielding power of the truth. If you've ever had to stand your ground when the world was against you, you know Elena's strength. What is one boundary you are proud of holding this year? Let us know in the comments. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to The Art of Revenge for more stories of justice and resilience.